Hello, everybody. This is Ask Dr. Bob, and this is where you ask me, Dr. Bob Gebe, the Chief Scientific and Medical Officer here at the American Diabetes Association, questions about diabetes. And for those of you that are new, we typically pick a theme every month. This is American Diabetes Month, so really a month where we all think more about diabetes and raise awareness. And as part of that, you'll see the logo that ADA, we fight. We are fighting for you to live healthier lives in lots of different ways. So, what's the focus this time? We're gonna focus on physical activity, and so have a number of questions around that. As a reminder, if you like the program, tell your friends and loved ones, and follow me on LinkedIn and Facebook, where I post lots of other things around diabetes. So let us get started, and let me pull up the questions and sort of go from there. So, starting off, can physical activity benefit people with diabetes? And you probably guessed, the answer is yes. But let me explain a little more how and why. Uh, so one thing is that exercise is really good for cardiovascular health. And you might say, well, diabetes, what do I care about cardiovascular health? Well, here's the thing. Guess what the number one cause of death is for people with diabetes? It is heart disease. And so anything we can do to lower the risk of heart disease is really important. And exercise really does that. And we'll talk in a moment about what kind of exercise and how much and all of that kind of stuff. Uh, what else exercise does is it helps to lower your blood pressure, and blood pressure also is a predictor of cardiovascular disease, but also kidney disease and eye disease related to diabetes. So controlling your blood pressure is really important. Exercise can help that. And for weight management, so here's the interesting thing about exercise and weight. Uh, you know to lose weight, generally, it's more about what you eat. Once you've lost weight, to keep your weight down, exercise becomes really important. And so, exercise is important for losing weight. But if you just exercise alone, you tend not to lose that much weight. But once you've lost the weight, to prevent yourself from regaining that weight, that's where exercise is important. So, question is, like, what does exercise do to blood glucose, and how does that work? And so here's what's interesting. You could almost think of exercise as insulin, and let me explain why I say that. So for glucose to get into muscle, uh, you need insulin. That's one of the main things that insulin does, is it helps get glucose from the bloodstream into muscle. But there's an exception to that, and that's exercise. Exercise lets glucose get into the muscle without needing any insulin. And so it really sort of helps to quickly lower your blood glucose. And you can even see that if you're wearing a continuous glucose monitor, or if you're just doing finger sticks and checking your blood glucose. Start with a glucose level, and do a little bit of exercise and see what happens. And you'll typically see your glucose levels will go down. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. So, what about physical activity in reducing the risk of developing type 2 diabetes? And that's actually been very well studied. And we know that exercise will lower the risk of developing diabetes. If you take people who have prediabetes and they start exercising, and I'll tell you exactly how much in a second, they can lower the risk of developing diabetes by 60%. So, really a profound effect. So, there was a study that really proved this. They took a group of people and they randomized them. Half of them did this diabetes prevention program, something that the American Diabetes Association is really working very closely with the Center for Disease Control. It's an evidence based way to prevent diabetes. It helps people to prevent diabetes. So, what was the exercise that they did? They walked 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. So, really 30 minutes a day, 5 times a week, or in essence, 150 minutes a week. That's something doable. Many people can think about doing that kind of exercise. And that, interestingly, here's a bit of trivia. You may have heard of 10,000 steps a day. Well, where do you think that comes from? In part, that comes from walking 150 minutes a week. So uh, you know so 30 minutes 5 times a week is a great way to prevent the development of diabetes. So let's get a little more into a question of what types of physical activity are recommended. So first of all, generally 150 minutes a week. That can be walking, not super slow walking, but walking at a good pace. But if you're younger and healthier, you may be able to do much more than that, and there is benefit from doing more than that. Uh, what I often tell my patients is, you want to do something that's going to help you, work up a sweat. That's how you know that you've really been exercising a little bit more vigorously. And for benefits for the heart, that's what you want to be able to do. So uh, you know, if you're really thinking about heart health, uh, then it's getting to a target heart rate. And I don't know if you've ever checked your pulse uh, to see what your heart rate is. There are also heart rate monitors that you can use. It'll give you a sense of how active you are. Well, here's a little formula for those of you that like to really think about numbers. So, your maximal heart rate is 220 minus your age. That's the maximum heart rate that you're likely able to get. Not everybody's able to do that, but this is where your limit is 220 minus your age. And the best exercise uh, is to get to 2/3 of your highest heart rate. So think about what your highest heart rate is. 220 minus your age, 2/3 of that is really that healthy zone. Now that's not for everybody. We'll talk about, if you're starting exercise, what you should do. Don't go for that, right? That's probably going to be too much for you. So when you're starting exercise, and let's say you're not very active, so you're not going to be going for target heart rates and all that, can be as simple as just getting out and walking around some. Walking is a great start. Start slow, pick up the pace, pick up the duration until you can get to that 30 minutes 5 times a week. Um, there's simple ways to get those 150 minutes. You want to spread them out. It could be 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. Could be if you're in front of a computer all day, just getting up and going for a little walk around. It could be a walk outside. It could even be walking at home if that's all you have. It could be doing a video exercise program that gets you active. Any of these things really works. It could be dancing. Dancing to music is a great way to exercise. Doing something fun. There are many different ways of exercising, and they're all good for you. Here's another interesting thing. As we age, it becomes important not only to do aerobic exercise. Aerobic exercise is exercise that gets you breathing a little faster. Uh, but also to do weight bearing exercise, to do strength training. So that can be calisthenics, things that you can just do in your home. There are all sorts of videos out there. Again, start slow. Things like, mini push ups, or, any of that kind of stuff. Something that builds strength is important, because as we age, we lose muscle mass, and that affects your diabetes, but it also affects your heart health. So What's the exercise to do? It's the exercise you like to do and are gonna do. That's probably the most important. Uh, you want to target 150 minutes a week, spread it out ideally over 5 days a week. And if you're more fit and you're younger, then think about getting to 2/3 of your maximal heart rate. 220 minus your age is your maximal heart rate. Okay, so we covered a bunch there. So the next question is, how can you get started? And that's really, this idea of starting slow. If you've not exercised, just slowly start. Do a little walking, get gradually able to do so, and then gradually increase. So go slow and then gradually increase. It helps to have a plan. Pick a time of day that you think you're most likely to exercise. Is it going to be the morning, the afternoon, after dinner? If you're a person that schedules yourself, put a schedule in. Could be at lunchtime. Going for a 10, 15, 20-minute walk is a great way to get started. The next question that I get a lot is, how do I stay motivated to continue to exercise once you get started? Well, there are a variety of ways to do that. Sometimes having a buddy that you exercise with. If you have a friend or a loved one, the two of you can say, "Hey, we're going to commit and we're going to start exercising. We're going to go for a walk each day at whatever time you pick a time." And that way, someday you might not feel quite in the mood, but they'll be the one to sort of get you motivated, and other times you'll be the one to get them motivated. So having a buddy can help. Uh, the other thing that helps us in any kind of change in behavior is tracking how you're doing, and then you get that feedback to see how it's going. How can you track your activity? Well, if you have a smartphone, many of them track your steps. Take a look at your steps. Try to work towards that 10,000 steps a day. That can be a great way. And again, scheduling time for it is important. So, this is Ask Dr. Bob, Dr. Bob Gabbay, Chief Scientific and Medical Officer for the American Diabetes Association. It's American Diabetes Month, and we're talking about physical activity if you're joining in late. And so, one of the questions that comes up is, what about hypoglycemia? People with diabetes sometimes have to worry about their blood glucose getting too low with exercise, and how do you manage that? Well, first of all, who are those people that are going to get glucoses too low? It's really people on insulin or people with type 2 diabetes that take a class of medications called sulfonylureas. Glyburide, glipizide, glucotrol, Amaryl, any of those medicines can cause you to drop too low. So, what to do? And then anybody on insulin, which means, all people with type 1 diabetes. Well, there are a lot of different ways to manage that hypoglycemia. One, first of all, is to monitor, right? Be able to check your glucose, see where you're at, tell whether you're dropping low, because you can't always go by symptoms. Because what are the symptoms of low blood glucose? Well, it can be being sweaty. If you're exercising, you don't know if you're sweating because of the exercise or because your glucose is low. So, uh, how do you manage, hypoglycemia? First is to be able to detect it, and that's where either doing finger sticks or even better, a continuous glucose monitor that can alarm if your blood glucose gets too low. So, one is to treat it when it's low with some quick releasing carbohydrates. Uh, can be a variety: glucose tablets, candy, juice, something you can carry around with you while you're exercising. And then there are the things you can do to plan ahead. What can you plan ahead to prevent you from dropping low? Well, if you're taking insulin with each meal and you're going to exercise after a meal, remember I said exercise is almost like insulin in that way. So take a little less insulin, and then that exercise will be the rest of that insulin, so to speak. So if you're exercising after a meal, take a little less insulin, before that meal. Monitor your blood glucose, and then if you need to take a snack before or during exercise, that's the other thing to think about doing. So here's an interesting thing. Someone says, "Well, I exercise and I sometimes get a high blood glucose. What's going on there?" Well, that can happen. And so, you know, what happens to blood glucose when you exercise? If you're exercising fairly intensely, uh, adrenaline starts pumping, right? And adrenaline raises your blood glucose. So vigorous exercise, initially, your glucose can go up from that intense adrenaline rush of, if you're running or, doing something, really vigorous. Uh, Typically, though, uh, it will drop down on its own, because once you stop exercising, the muscles will take up all of that glucose. So generally, don't treat the high when you're exercising. uh, it'll come down on its own. And of course, talk to your healthcare professional about all of this. We're just giving you some general recommendations. So we covered a lot of things about exercise, how exercise can act like glucose, like insulin. It generally lowers your blood glucose, that it can be effective not only for lowering your blood glucose, but also for lowering your risk of heart disease, for controlling your blood pressure. It has lots of good things. It can help prevent diabetes if you have pre-diabetes. Uh, 150 minutes a week is the initial target. Start slow if you're not exercising, and do it gradually and build up. Pick a time that you're going to do it. Do something that you like to do, right? Like probably going to be the best way for you to continue to do it regularly. Think about if you have a buddy to exercise with, a friend, or a loved one that you can sort of commit together. That's a great thing. And if particularly if you're on insulin, monitor your blood glucose while you're exercising, so you know whether you're dropping too low. So finally, like any of these sessions, I always like to end with, well, how can I find out more? Because we can only cover so much in the time we have. And again, the American Diabetes Association website has a bunch of information. If you're interested in programs that will get you motivated, engaged around exercise, there's something that we have at ADA, the American Diabetes Association, called Project Power. So our website is diabetes.org, and it's there you'll find Project Power. There's also a whole section on fitness. So diabetes.org/fitness, lots of information there. So I hope this has been helpful. If it has, please share this with your friends. Follow me on LinkedIn and Facebook for lots more information. It's American Diabetes Month. Please take care of yourself. Exercises just makes you feel good. And I'll tell you a tip that I use. I love to listen to music when I exercise, because it just gets me going. So uh, be well, and we will see you next month. Take care.